Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. So today is a very special day from one angle, that it is the day that Lord Krishna delivered Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. It's called Gita Jayanti. A lot of people celebrate it and a lot of people don't know. But in a lot of organizations, they recognize that day, very, very special day. So just wanted to mention that. Okay. So we are on chapter 10. And today we'll be doing verse 3 of chapter 10. And we saw verse 2 last week. And it said, the English translation was, neither the hosts of heaven nor the great rishis know the origin, for in every way I am the source of all the devas and the rishis. And there was a lot of hidden meaning behind hosts of heaven and great rishis. It was talking about the phenomenal forces and our indriyas as well as mind and intellect don't know the origin. And we saw the whole analysis that if there is a power behind these things, so something that is behind something you can't see, just like an eye can see the entire world and everything, but it cannot see itself. That is a difficulty on this path. So if we understood that, with that we move forward. Okay, so here is a verse 3. Yo mam ajamanadim cha veti lokamaheshwaram asammudha samarteshu sarva papai pramuchyate. Ya is who, means whoever is. Mam, me. Ajama. Ajam is unborn. Jayate, like, is called being born. Ajam is unborn. Anadi. We have heard of this. Ant or anadi. Beginningless. These two words we have to analyze in detail. Cha is and, Veti knows, Loka Maheshwaram. We have heard Maheshwar, Shiv ji ka naam bhi Maheshwar hai. And यहाँ पर उसका deep meaning है. And Loka Maheshwar, the great Lord of the world. So these three words we are going to, very important in this verse. Ajam, Anadi and Lok Maheshwaram. Asambudha, Mudaha. So Muda means deluded. Muda ko murkh bhi bola hai. So there is many different kind of meaning. Deluded means the person who doesn't know what's going on. Sa is he. Martyeshu. Among mortals. Isko mrityu lok bhi bola gaya hai. People who are born over here like us, we are mortals. Our body is mortal. We are not. Like they say, everybody dies, but every body dies, but nobody dies. This is the saying. Sarva papahi, from all sins. Pramuchite is liberated. So here Krishna Bhagwan, once he started this chapter, and then he told Arjuna, listen to me, and I'll tell you the path and all that. And then he said, look, even hosts of devas and maharshis don't know me, means, mind, intellect, and you cannot grasp it with that. And then Arjun might feel very dejected. Oh my God, does that mean that I'll never understand God? I'll never know. He said, don't worry, I will tell you what the path is, So from that perspective, he's talking. So when we listen to Bhagwan, and he's been talking, this is the 10th chapter. He's been talking in 9 chapters already. When we contemplate on what he's saying, what we have heard from him about who God is, and we meditate upon it, nididhyasan, and we understand, who God is, then we will be able to transcend. our mind, senses, mind, and intellect. And we will be able to comprehend the truth as it is. And so, how do we understand transcending? So it's not the best example because the worldly examples are never the best, but just gives an idea. So, it's just like, when we go into the dream world, we have transcended the waking world as though and gone in the dream world. A different state of being, different state of consciousness, you can say. So just an example. So same way as listening and contemplating and meditating, we are able to transcend the lower level of reality, this relative reality, and come to comprehend the Supreme. So that's one way of looking at it. So Bhagavan says, Yaha, like he said, Yaha is who? He who, then he says, Mam Ajam Anadi Chaveti. One who comprehends me as Ajam means unborn, and Anadi means beginningless. If they have to understand me as these two, entities. So why unborn? Because we have seen God, there is no cause for the God. So ye dunya ka karan kya hai? Bhagwan. It's sometimes, like this is what Nikhilanandji said. Some little children, you tell them, suppose they hear that, hey, God made this world. So what will they ask? Who made God? Very logical question. So the problem is nobody made God. He's Swayambhu, they call it. They have different words, right? So everything is an expression of that Supreme, but God himself is eternal. How do we understand that? Now we know that God is eternal. Causeless cause. That's what Swamiji says. All the saints and sages come up with different words, how to explain it. So another way of looking at it, whichever your mind can connect to. Causeless cause, eternal, or beyond touch of time. He is not product of time. And I don't know if you have, maybe I have discussed this. It's a very interesting thing. Even in the English language, somebody said, why do they say the smallest unit of time as second? Has anybody thought about it? Why don't they say it first? Why do they call it second? Meenaji knows, but you are muted. Say it, Meenaji. Try to make it class more interesting. Everybody thinking,
It's the second because the unit of time only can be between the two, the second one. And that's why I thought will make
Okay,
time.
So I'll give you one more interesting answer. Because God is first. First God is there and then the time came. So it had become second. So there's the English language maybe Vedant hai, right? It's very interesting, So time came after God, never before, ever. So because God is timeless. So he is not an effect or product of the time, and he's not an effect of any particular cause, and that's why he's called Anadi, beginningless. Pure existence, that's another word they use it. Pure, our existence depends on that, but that is pure existence, So, and the conclusion is that Ajam means not born at a particular time, space, or in a body. Doesn't happen. And then you will see when we do our reading from Chinmayananji's commentary, he took another very beautiful angle to explain us what that means. So everything together, something should click in us. So, and you can also, when we call transcendental nature of Bhagwan, this is what it is, beyond time. That he is beyond time. Ajam. And then we know that according to the Vedanta, we have seen that God doesn't bring the material from somewhere else to manifest this world. He himself appears like this world. According to Vedanta, what we are seeing is God. I just don't have the drishti to see it. I'm saying this is this thing, that thing, ocean, and everything is God only. There's nothing else exists, only God. So from every angle, this fits. And then the other thing is, so he is not only Ajam, but beginningless. They are connected, these two words, right? Beginningless and Ajam. And then what is the next thing? That when God appears himself like this world, So obviously he is the master of this world. Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He is the boss, the supreme boss. That we saw that one verse was there in our Taittiriya Upanishad where it said all the phenomenal forces are also scared because there's a boss standing behind it. That is Sarva Loka Maheshwara, supreme boss is that Ishvara. And then another, Nikhilananji always reminds us of one thing, very, very important thing. He's saying that whenever we are saying he is this, he is that about God, what are we talking about? Our own essential nature is turning it back to us, which is very hard for us, but we have to constantly do that. It's my own essential nature. So when he say he's a Mahan Ishwar of entire world of Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, and everything is controlled and functioning by him, we have to say that my essential nature is that. But another point is that, like suppose somebody says, oh, I don't know about God and all that, but there is a law of nature. Like a law of nature. You think that it's the same thing. They call it law of nature, we call it law of God. It's exactly same thing because the nature has come from him only. Right? So everything is functioning according to the law, and we saw in the previous verses in chapter 8 and all that. And nobody can transcend this law. Unless you are like somebody like Hanumanji, maybe he can because he has a siddhi. But people like us, we can't. If I put a finger in a fire, it is going to burn. So this is a law of nature. And it's followed very precisely. I was just watching some program yesterday about moon, and they said the distance of the moon and all that, the way our solar system is so precise, and that's why we have life on earth. जरा भी आगे पीछे होता ना हमारी life ही नहीं होती. So sun and moon are so important for us. The precision is there. There's some intelligence is there behind it. You can keep saying it's chance, it's this, it's all the materialists might say. How many chances are you going to count? Somebody has done some precise calculation and done it. So from that perspective, you can call it he's a very controller, the ruler of the entire world. And that's what this Sarva Loka Maheshwaram means. And he's saying that the person who knows me like this, Ajam, Anadi, and Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, that person becomes free of delusion. उसके मन में कोई confusion नहीं रह जाता है, कोई ego वगैरह नहीं रह जाता है. That's what it is. And or you can say the one who contemplates on this knowledge given by God only becomes free of delusion. So asammudaha is that free of delusion, mudata, delusion. All wrong notions get dropped. If somebody say, what does that mean further? That's what it means. And then last part he says, such a person, sarva papai pramuchyate, means such a person becomes free from all paps and all sins of all mortal. So how, this is a little bit technical and I'll try to explain it. Because when we say, pap, punya, kind of duality is there in the world, and you say, what is pap? Koi bura kaam kar liya, usko pap bolenge, right? But Vedant mein ek bahut deep meaning hai pap ka. Pap means when we consider ourselves as a limited being. When I forget myself, who I am, that actually prompts us to do pap. So from what we see in the world is more effect of that, but uska jo root cause hota hai na paap ka, wo hamesha wohi hota hai ki I consider myself as a limited being, I'm separate from everybody else and this and that. And this paap, another way to catch what is paap is, paap always gives sorrow to people. The end result is sorrow, So because you are going away from your real nature, sorrow is happening. Like Arjuna became full of sorrow in the beginning because he forgot who he was. His attachment, his relationship became the most important thing in his life at that time. He forgot his bigger picture. So it's one who comprehends himself, his own nature, becomes free of pap according to the Vedanta. Okay? And then if you don't have comprehension of that nature, then you are always going in this पाप पुण्य के चक्कर में फंसे रहते हो तुम, you know, because we do, the reason is because we do the action according to doership जिसको बोलते हैं ना ego से, I am doing it, I am so great, you know, you forget that without that power behind our senses, mind and intellect, we are nothing, zero. We forget that, and I'm doing it, and then we do some wrong actions because in that ego, and then we suffer, and that is, so when we experience joy, उसको बोल दिया संसार में पुण्य, इसने बहुत पुण्य काम किया होगा इसके लिए इसको इतना सब खुशी मिल रही है. And then once, or if we, you know, experience sadness, then we say that is pap. That's another way of looking at it. So these keep alternating in our life. But what is the technical thing happens when you comprehend that nature, that the sinner itself gets dissolved. It's like ego is gone. There is nobody to deliver that pap and punya ka result to that person. You know, it's a little technical thing. So if you don't get it, it's all right. But if you're getting it, great. And the way our teacher used to explain it is like the mailman is trying to put a mail, but if the house itself doesn't exist, where is he going to put the mail? So you rise above papa and punya. Both of them don't affect you. You're free of it, you know. Just to kind of explain a little more, that the ego get dissolved. When the ego get dissolved, that's when the sinner gets, or person who gets punya and pap get dissolved. So that's why you become free. So what, in nutshell, what is he saying? Krishna Bhagavan, hey Arjun, listen to what I have to say, contemplate upon it, think about it, meditate on it, and become free from delusions. You know, don't have this wrong notion. Then dissolve your limited personality, come to comprehend yourself as that supreme. And then Nikhilanand ji is very funny. He said, now remember, this knowledge is for all of us. He's not just telling Arjun. अर्जुन को बोल दिया मेरे को क्या करना है, तुम रिलैक्स होके बैठ जाओ, नहीं, you also sit down and contemplate and all. He's telling us only because he was just reminding that the spirituality is for everybody. We all are same, no matter who you are. We all are equal when we are listening to this message of Krishna Bhagwan and to follow this path and all that. Because in the physical world, you know, this is a woman, that's a man, और पता नहीं इंडिया में क्या क्या रूल बना दिया, women cannot study, वेदांता कुछ किया है उन्होंने, I don't know, you know, we don't worry about it. What Chinmayanand ji said, बच्चे से लेके बूढ़े से लेके, whether you are educated, uneducated, female, young, old, does not matter. This knowledge is for everybody. Anybody can start learning and benefiting, you know. So it's for all of us. And then one very interesting thing he said, which our teacher used to talk about it too. Even in the physical world, okay, outwardly, everything looks different, right? You have a variety, so much, you know, tremendous varieties there in the world. Whether you take the different elements and, you know, chemical composition and all the molecules and all that. But the moment you start going deeper into something, you know, so you will find out that things are made of molecules. उसमें भी difference होता है. But then you go further deep, तो उसके अंदर atoms आएंगे. Atoms में भी कुछ फर्क होता है. और भी deep जाओ, आइंस्टाइन की तरह, energy तक पहुंच जाओगे तुम, है कि नहीं? All the people who are scientists and all over here, they know. Energy, हमने भी थोड़ा बहुत science पढ़ा है. I'm not a scientist, but I understand this part. They say that energy तक पहुंच गए, energy level पे सब same आज हो जाता है. Think about it. So then you rise above the energy, then you come to the atom, थोड़ा सा फर्क होएगा ये वो, फिर आगे जाओ molecules में और फर्क होएगा, फिर आगे बढ़ते जाओ, variety होती जाती है. So whether you look at from the physical world, spiritual world, when you go to the core of us, essence is the same, which is a very interesting thing that he said, you know. So this is what this verse is talking about. And then he will go further. Like Nikhilanand ji said, the question is, okay, so what is my nature? I want to know more. Then he will give some idea that, you know, and then following verses, fourth verse, what it is. So any question, comment? Anybody wants to add anything?
Umaji, explain to me the difference between unborn and beginningless is a very two fundamental things. To me, the unborn is like, if it's unborn, I mean, something that is there, is born, is going to die. Beginningless is the same thing to me.
It is the same thing. You are absolutely right. Some people might like the word unborn. Some people like my beginningless. You can take your pick. It does not matter because both are flowing into each other, the meaning. They just, these are you get little technical because this is what it is. Everything in this sansar, when we say it is temporary, it has a time that it appears and then time it disappears.
Right.
That's all it is. That's called born. हमारी language में उसको born और dying बोल दिया. हाँ, तो भगवान के साथ वो नहीं होता है. And the second thing is कि कोई चीज शुरू हुई फिर खत्म हुई. हाँ, तो भगवान तो न शुरू हुआ है और खत्म का तो सवाल ही नहीं है. लेकिन शुरू भी बोले कि like that child asking, hey, God made this world. Who made God? Like it's like Shiv ji के कोई पाता पिता नहीं है.
Right. Yes.
That he doesn't have any gotra, he doesn't have anything. Then there was discussion about gotra. उनका कोई गोत्र नहीं because he is unborn. He's beginningless. So there you are absolutely right. It's just two different angles they took. Birth and death, beginning and end. That's it. And they both are the same.
So much pointed out as three things: unborn, beginningless, and the great Lord of the world. Three things they took out.
They did. But it is.
Two things were. What's the difference? That's what I couldn't make.
It's just a language, because see, remember another thing. In the Taittiriya also, with that verse is coming where it says that the speech returns after going to there, because speech return means speech cannot explain what that is. Right? So then they are just trying to use different words. In the end, whatever connects with your mind. If both of them correct, great.
Okay.
All right. That's
Thank
all
you.
it is. Yeah.
Umaji, are you?
Yes, I can hear you.
Would you call it like it's a being without manifestation kind of?
It has a power to manifest. So, see, this is how it is. The best example I can give, you have anything more to say about that? Or that's your question?
It's like, I'm just trying to...
Yeah, you're trying to grasp it, right?
You were saying that it's like, so is it an abstract being without manifestation? Is that how I understand? Or
No.
I'm confused too.
Yes, you are. It's easy. That's good. I'm glad you asked that question, because that's what clarify. It's something like we say we are 5 elements are there in this world, right? That earth, air, fire, space, and water. Correct? Water I can see. I have no problem with this. Space I can comprehend also. When it comes to fire, it is Vyapt. Vyapt means it is there in the whole cosmos, but many places it is in unmanifest form. Think about it. This whole house, it has fire in it too. Because if somebody puts a match, anything can start burning. I was watching one show. I don't know if you guys know about it. It seems there was a great fire of Chicago. It burned for like weeks. They could not control it, right? Itna power hai, but it's an unmanifest form. That means potentially it is there. Did you understand that part now? Or seed. I take a seed and I put it there on the table and I say, the whole tree is in it. Unmanifest form, right? So when the right conditions come, I put that seed in the ground, I give it water, sunlight and all, then it starts sprouting. Same way fire. It is an unmanifest form in the wood everywhere. I put a match, certain conditions happen, oxygen is there and all that, boom, it will start manifesting. Same way, when we say pure God, an unmanifest form, he is like that. Ajam, Anadi, everything. But it has a potential to manifest and come and then when it decides, okay, bahut ho gaya, it can fold itself, go back to the same. And the other example is the ocean. Ocean, at the deepest level, there are no waves in it. And the majority of the ocean is like that because, whole Himalayas can sama jayega isme. Inside there is all calm and all. Waves come, they are there for temporarily, then they again merge back into it. That's called manifestation. So it has a potential, and the third example I can give you that will clarify it. Suppose somebody is a dancer, right? So the dance is an unmanifest form. When they decide to dance, they dance and they become quiet again. So this is a cosmic dance, you can say, happening. Temporarily, it has a potential, comes out and goes back again. So when we say God, our Vedanta says God is both. He's manifested also, unmanifested also. But in pure form, it is Anadi, Ajam and Lok Maheshwaram. That's what it says. Does that make sense?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any other question? Okay. So we can read then Swamiji's commentary. It is going to take us a little deeper in certain angles, and it will make it even more clear. Okay, who would like to read? Meena ji, you have not read for a while. You can read it.
He who amongst the mortals knows me as unborn and beginningless, as the great Lord of the worlds, he is undeluded and is liberated from all sins. He who knows me, not merely knowing in an emotional sweep or even an intellectual comprehension, but it is a true and spiritual apprehension which comes to one's during moments of one's own intimate identification with the self. The self is to be realized as unborn, beginningless, the great Lord of the world. These three terms, each pregnant with suggestions to those who know a little of the ancient traditions in the Hindu philosophical thoughts, are generally meaningless to the uninitiated. The world of matter is the realm of finitude, where each item or being or a thing or experience has a beginning and an end, a birth and a death.
So you see how Swamiji also explained that beginning and then a birth and a death. So it's like, it's the same thing, and he's just saying that these three have a very deep meaning, but to the uninitiated, if you don't know certain basic principles of Vedanta, you won't understand these philosophical meaning, and it'll be just mere words. And then also Swamiji warned, when you talk about the one who knows me, not some emotional, some people, like a lot of people say, oh, bhakti marg bahut aasan hai, and our teacher used to say, bhakti marg is sabse zyada mushkil. Because you can just pretend to be a bhakt, but जो असली भक्त होता है उसको full surrender होता है, उसको कुछ भी हो जाए वो कभी भी नहीं. बट हम लोग दुनिया में जरा सा भी कुछ हमारे मन से अलग होता है ना, तो भगवान को मानना छोड़ देंगे. Fire God only. Who God? That's not bhakti. And the real bhakti, and you will see in this chapter itself how Arjun's mindset start changing towards Lord Krishna. Pehle he used to think he's my buddy, he's my friend, which is a great relationship. Now he realizes Sarvaloka Maheshwara he is, He has come in the form, but his essence is, he is in tune with that essence, Krishna Bhagavan. So then he starts saying some words which are like almost like prayer type of word towards him. So when you really feel, from intellectual, it's a comprehension intellectually, then the emotions get attached to it. Mere emotionalism is not going to work. Sorry?
Does he understand as himself at this point somewhat?
Yes, so he's beginning to get it. And he also realized he has the same confusion like us. He's going to say things like, I have heard the same thing from other people also. And now you are saying it, but you know yourself best. That's how he puts it, But can you tell me how I should know you? So he still has some doubts, obviously. He does, just like we have it. We might say the words, but deep inside, we still have some doubts and things. And he is in the same shoe. Yeah.
And in this, the three worlds, unborn beginningless, to me, this like the substratum, the great Lord of the world becomes as the, as the world itself.
Yes.
Which consists of that. And unborn is the substratum of all that.
Exactly.
It included both the things.
Yes. And the next paragraph, Swamiji is going to explain, and that the whole example of rope and a snake explains everything, or the ghost and the post. Same, that, hey, the substratum is there, I see something else, but like for example, the rope is there, right? I see the snake. From the rope perspective, nothing is born.
Yeah.
I just see it.
Right.
That's what he's saying, unborn. Yeah.
Okay. The infinite cannot ever be born, inasmuch as it never has come to express itself into any of the finite manifestations. The ghost is born, and therefore it must also die. But it cannot be considered either that the post has given birth to the ghost, or that the post has come to be born out of the ghost. The post was, is, and shall ever be. The self is the eternal, and therefore it is birthless. Everything else comes to be born in the self, exists in the self, and when all things are totally destroyed, they come back to end in the self. The waves are born out of the ocean, but the ocean is birthless. Every wave, every manifestation has a beginning, an existence, and an end. But the essence cannot have a beginning, and therefore, in this stanza here, the self is qualified as beginningless.
So he explained it thoroughly, right? So those two words are, you can use one for the other. Beginningless and unborn, it's the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's just two different words. That's how I look at it. And this example of a snake and a rope is a very, very good one. If we cannot grasp everything else, but the moment you go back to the example, you will understand what it means by birthless. It just appears. I know it's hard for us, because for us, we think that we are seeing tangible things in this world. किसी ने बोला कि कितना भी tangible हो, they are just atoms going, circling around. And then it turns into energy, and then even baby, when it's born, where was it before? It was all different material. The food, the body especially of the baby. The mother ate the food and all that, and it started growing, and and all that. So scientifically also you come to the same conclusion. If you that's why it's a contemplative subject. You got to think, and if you have doubt, you ask, the saint sages, and some of them have thought about every doubt that a human mind can come up with, especially somebody like Shankaracharya. When we were doing that Mandukya Upanishad, remember how many different angles it took, because they know that how human mind is doubtful, which is normal, which is okay. As long as it's not egotistic and asking because, trying to, I know everything, then we won't learn anything. But, having genuine doubts, those are very normal thing. And that's why Arjuna is asking questions also. So it's okay.
The Lord of the worlds, Sarvaloka Maheshwara. The term Loka is one of the Sanskrit words which has a vast range of implications that are ignored generally by the translators, who render it as the world. In the mother language, Loka comes from a root meaning to experience, and therefore the word should, in its full import, come to represent the meaning of field for experiencing. In this sense, we make use of the word Loka even in the ordinary everyday usage: the world of the rich, the world of the underdog, the world of the poets, etc. In its ampler meaning, the universe indicated by the word Loka is not only the physical world experienced by our physical equipment, but it includes also the world of feeling and world of ideas, recognized, reacted, and experienced by all of us in our lives.
So he's just telling you the words, but it says Sarva Loka Maheshwara. So whenever we think like that, boss of the world, we just think the physical world. ये दुनिया है जो भी मुझे दिखाई दे रही है, वो चांद सितारे, ये वो सबका बॉस है वो. They're doing go one step further. You know, my emotional world का भी boss है वो, मेरे intellectual world का भी boss है वो. All the experience that I get, and if you really think about it, philosophically speaking, one second, huh? 1 second. Yeah, okay. Yeah, philosophically speaking, what was I saying about experience, right? That I don't know, I lost my chain of thought. So coming back to this loka, that everything, including our emotional, intellectual, and worldly things, everything together is called the world. Oh yes, I know what I was saying. Each one has its own universe, somebody was saying, philosophically speaking. Why? Because I have my own drishti and I live in my own universe. My problems, you know, the way I look at it. You tell one person, you show them one thing, and you show two people one thing, they will have two different opinions. You know? It's not that the thing is something different. No, that's how they view it. Even this, whatever is election, America is totally divided, right? Each person side think that we are the right and all that. That's their drishtikon. That's what it is. So everybody has their own experience. He is the boss of everybody's experience. That's another way of looking at it. Each one has its own dunya, but the boss is that Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, Bhagwan at the essence. Okay?
Yeah, I was just thinking, if you look at a rose, a poet would look at it differently. A scientist would look
You
at
got
it
it.
differently.
Yes.
You know, and then not the poet, not the scientist, but ordinary person would just look at it differently. All
Yes.
three would look at differently the same thing. So
Yeah,
that's
what it is. But so now you think about it. Everybody's experience put together. Who's the big boss? It's him. Yeah.
Thus, my loka is the field of experiences that I revel in at the levels of my body, my mind, and my intellect. And it is evident that these experiences can never be mine unless I am constantly aware of them. This essential factor, pure awareness of consciousness, without which I am dead to the world, with which I perceive the world and live in it actively, should necessarily be then the presiding chieftain that rules with his grace my loka.
So the same idea, he's kind of explaining it a little more, because he's just hammering it in our head that, all the experiences that I have, the reason I have this homogeneous experience, something like this. I am the same person, but my body keeps changing. Sometimes that's why in our old age also I think, you know what, I'm really not changed. Inside you feel like a child only.
Yeah, I mean, in the inside, that part, you feel like you're still you cannot even give an age to it.
Exactly. There you got it. There. That's why we come up with this term, forever young, yeah, but we can see our body, I don't like to use the word deteriorating, but whatever. Wear and tear happening to our machine, which is this body. But I feel still the same, right? I have the joy, sorrows, and I enjoy certain things. And just like when I was a little girl, I enjoyed it now also. Because there is some entity which is constant. And that is holding all this experience together. And that is that consciousness he's talking about. That is that God. That is a God at a pure level, that is holding everything together. Yeah.
The Atman that rules over my world is the Atman that rules over the worlds of each individual, the self being the same. The entire universe is a sum total of the worlds of experiences of each individual, and evidently, the ruler that governs the entire must necessarily be the absolute self itself. The term Lord of the worlds is to be thus rightly understood. The Lord is not a tyrant over life or a sultan of the skies, or an autocrat that rules over our experiences. Self is the Lord of our experiences, just as the sun is the Lord of my daytime world.
So Swamiji is just trying his best from different angles, to say, because another problem that we have, that we think that consciousness is all different. Actually, there is some branch of philosophy in India. I don't know which one exactly it is, but there are 7 branches which say that everybody's consciousness is different. Something like that. They divide it. But Vedanta says no. And the best example, worldly example, is that electricity. Electricity at its base is the same. You cannot say Indian electricity, Chinese electricity, or even water ko dekh lo, air ko dekh lo. It is the same H2O in the entire world. You cannot say that here, ocean is one. They can put a temporary, not temporary, imaginary line and divide it. भाई ये मेक्सिको का पानी है, पर मेक्सिको वाले वो गंदा डालते हैं वहां पर, तो इधर आ जाता है. I heard that all that sewage and all is there was a warning. Bacteria is high. I know America is not going to do that, but what can you do? So in other words, there is homogeneity is there, and at that level, if energy is entirely the same way, consciousness is one, and it is that's why it's called the ruler, because that is a big boss. All the laws are coming from there, but still Swamiji doesn't want us to think God is some kind of man with a dadi sitting in the heaven with a danda, and I don't like you, I like you, I'm going to punish you. Aisa nahi hai, at all. It is my own nature, and it goes by certain law. If I follow the law, I'll be a happy person. If I break the law, thappad padega.
He who knows me as birthless, beginningless, and as the great Lord of the worlds, he ends his delusion. In and through the brimming ghost that frightens me, I gain a glimpse of the wayside lamppost, and forthwith, thereupon I go beyond my delusion and find myself released from every fear. In Hinduism, the concept of sin is not a frightening picture of some horrid inevitability, which the Christian is never tired of preaching. Man is not punished for his sins, but he is punished by his sins. Sin is a self-insulting act arising out of a misunderstanding in the sinner as to his own identity.
So, the last line of this paragraph, sin is a self-insulting act arising of a misunderstanding of this sinner. So, that's why they also feel like anybody can be redeemed. They say, like Krishna Bhagwan said, kitna bhi dusht aadmi ho, once he walks on this path, consider him a sadhu. Remember, itna strongly unhone bola because of this, that once a misunderstanding is there, you are not capable of doing the sin. Why the sin happens is because we forget who we are, and in our delusion, we start doing. But once somebody knows, Bhagwan or his own essence as birthless, beginningless, and the great Lord of the world, he will be released from it because he will not do anything wrong. Basically, that's how you can look at it. And then, we talk about Christianity and all, because I don't think Jesus intended that way, but later on they made it like that, ki bhai, to release you from the sin, you are born in sin. That is the difference between our philosophy and they think that you are born in sin and Jesus will release you, and they're saying, no, you're in essence, everybody is divine. Tumko सीधा भगवान बना दिया उन्होंने. Just try to understand who you are and establish in it. That's what our philosophy says, So there are 2 different approaches. So that's what Swamiji is saying.
Maybe born in sin is like our own karmas. That's why we're born,
Yeah, but the moment, like they say, you get established in that, everything gets released. Because the sinner is gone.
Sinner is gone. I mean, I'm just thinking when you just said that. And then I said, well, maybe for Christians, sin means you are born in sin. It's like we are born, again and again because of we don't know our.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, I see what you're saying, and it makes sense. And that's exactly what I said. See, Jesus' experience and Krishna's and all that, it has to be the same because the highest level, everything is same.
It's the same.
But the way they present it, but then what happens in my mind is that after certain time, उनके चेले के चेले के चेले, उसको वो that knowledge gets contaminated. And that's exactly what Krishna Bhagwan said in chapter 4 to Arjun. I had given this knowledge to the sun and to this and to that. It got contaminated. I'm giving it to you again now in the pure form. And we see the contamination in India. You know, they kitna blackmail karte hain. Some of those, kya bolte hain, Pandit and all that who are not very good-hearted. They're trying to make a business out of it and they scare you. And that's not the whole idea. Vedanta, there is no... In fact, they tell you to become fearless. That's what I'm saying, that probably every religion, it starts with the pure thing and then later on it gets messed up,
Yeah, one's own interpretations, I guess.
Yes. So that's why for us also, we need some pure-minded people to tell us. Otherwise, we will have been the same shoe.
Yes.
We will start misunderstanding and holding on to some other crazy ideas that are not true. And in this chapter itself, Krishna Bhagwan says, I give them buddhi yoga. The people who are striving on this path, I bless them with buddhi yoga to get the real correct import. And I remove the darkness in their heart. Things like that, he will say. So when Bhagwan sees us making a good effort, he will make our mind pure so that we understand it correctly too.
When one wanders away from one's own real nature as the self and identifies oneself with the outskirts of one's own real domain and behaves as though one is nothing but a mass of oozing flesh or a bundle of throbbing emotions or a pack of ideas, one comes to act mostly unfortunately in a way dishonoring one's own godly dignity and divine status, the one without a second. Such acts and thoughts chain him down to pursuits after low pleasures, never allowing him to rise above into the higher climes of his real perfection.
I think Swamiji is using very strong language over here.
One sentence took me 5 lines of one sentence.
Yes, he has the longest. All he's saying is, if you think you are just body, mind, and intellect, what problems can happen? And there are a whole chapter coming now. I think chapter 16, the devilish and the divine qualities. So Bhagwan describes, suppose if a person out there thinks there is nothing more in this world, it's just body, mind and intellect, that's it. वो कैसे सोचता है? And I tell you, it's like, like when you read that, it is so precise, because that person gets frustrated very fast. कुछ भी थोड़ा इधर उधर हुआ ना, they will be, and they have, suddenly ego will rise so much. I can do this, I can conquer the world. जितने भी dictators हैं ना, उसका character एकदम beautifully describe किया हुआ है. Yeah, I can conquer the whole world, I'm the king, I'm this, and then they fall so badly, they flat. Some of them, like someone like Hitler he committed suicide only. Because it ends up in this a disaster, because you think that you are just this. It's dangers of just not, thinking higher. That's what Swamiji is telling you. That, you forget your own godly dignity and divine status, and then that becomes bound. बोलते ना कि it becomes संसार से बंध जाते हो इतना ज़्यादा कि you feel chained. When we say that we are bound, they're not talking about physically tying ourselves or anything. Mentally, we feel tied down. We don't feel free, Who likes to be? Even a small child doesn't like to be tied down. They want to run around and be free.
It's one way of thinking that binds us, I think.
Sorry?
Just one way of thinking, the way we think is right. And that's what binds. We're not open to everybody.
Yes. Or just thinking that that's all in the world, that what else is there? You are born, you die, and that's it. It's the end of the story.
True.
Yeah.
On rediscovering the nature of the self and gaining thereby a perfect, irremovable, and complete identification of himself with the self, he can no longer live in a perpetuate any more of his past sins. The sins in us are the carbuncles from which we can come to suffer the pains of our limitations and the sorrows of our bondage. The moment we understand and live in the realization that the self is unborn and beginningless, and that the self is not concerned with the decaying and the perishable matter, we have gained all that has to be gained and known all that has to be known. Such an individual of true realization becomes himself the Lord of the worlds.
See, how you become the big boss is when you identify, with that highest thing, and then the sin will not touch you. That's what it is. And you will not be sorrowful. Because the whole Bhagavad Gita started that Arjun became sorrowful. And Krishna Bhagavan gave him the highest knowledge first in chapter 2. Krishna Bhagavan wanted Arjun to look at life in a big spectrum, not just my relationship with this world and my these are my gurus and my this thing. That is one angle. But then from the worldly dharma angle also, he told him, you'll be doing adharmic if you don't fight this war, because the society has trained you to become a soldier. It's like everybody has invested in you. So when the time comes, you can fight for us. It's like a doctor. But then again, the people who go to the medical school and don't practice, people get angry at them that, hey, how much money is spent to make you a doctor? Now go become a doctor. Don't go, because of the same thing, right? So like that. And then from the spiritual perspective, he said that, you think that these people are going to die. In the end, nobody dies. But you have to do your duty. And in your duty, if your calls for killing somebody to save other millions of people, then do it. That was the whole idea. So coming back to this verse, it is like, you connect to that highest, you will be released from sorrow. And who doesn't want to be released from sorrow? Everybody wants to be happy. Because in my 10th grade class, when we begin in the beginning, that's what we ask. We all want to be happy, right? Anybody want to be unhappy here? Nobody will raise their hand. Same way. So then that's why we have to study Bhagavad Gita, because we all want to be happy.
Okay. One line left. How is the self is the Lord of the worlds? And that's we're going to do next.
Because he's going to say that, everything comes from me. And, now before that, he was talking about the physical things. Now he's talking about subtle things. That's why the topic is getting subtler and subtler. That's what it is. Any question, comment? Anybody has to it? It is a little bit tough subject, but I hope now we are getting it. Any? Anilji, what do you think? Usually.
No questions. Okay. Lot to think about.
Lot to think about, but it's good that it gives us a lot of different angles to think. I think Swamiji has covered between the two commentaries, there are quite a few things.
Only one question. Shankaracharya in Nirvana Shatkam, he says he is not seeking happiness or sorrow. But here we are saying that we are looking for happiness.
Okay, so now go back to Taittiriya. They're talking about that bliss, correct?
Yes.
What bliss they are talking about, it is a transcendental thing. So it is actually, when we say happiness, it is like happiness, it's the opposite of sorrow for us. And that is again tied up with sorrow. So it is a worldly happiness. But just to begin with, we don't know what that bliss is. So it's like Bhagwan is putting some carrot in front of us. Don't you want to be happy? begin here, but I'm going to give you something beyond this world. You know? So it is just for us to say happiness, but actually we want to be in that state of bliss.
Bliss,
Yeah,
yes. That's,
yeah.
That is something that has no equal.
Right. That's another way of looking at it. There's no opposite of it.
That's the only one. There
Yeah.
is no equal.
Yeah.
There
Correct.
will be different levels based on your capacity to absorb. But ultimately, when you merge with him, then you are done.
Yeah. So, and it's like अभी हम लोग खाली अनुमान लगा सकते हैं ऐसा होगा वैसा होगा. That's why, you know, the Taittiriya Upanishad tried to give some worldly measure. Remember they said 100 times more, 100 times more. And then Swamiji did some calculation. You will see in the footnote, you know, millions of, but he's saying, actually speaking, that bliss, you can't compare it to anything. इतना होने के बाद भी. But it is just for our, giving us some little tools to hang on to at our level. You know? Yeah. But we have a lot to look forward to then, if that's what it is.
To me,
Yeah.
this is like a shahad, in front of the bee. So she keeps moving up to get there.
That's what it is. Yes. He's putting.
You'll always be looking for it. More.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll close the Bhagavad Gita here. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhya mokshayishyami ma shuchah. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.